Welcome, everyone. Um, to get started, to introduce myself, for those of you that don't know me, um, my name is Nate Munell. I've been with TradeWest for, I couldn't give you an exact time now. I can't even think. Been with them for a good while. Mike and I actually, um, we've looked at a lot of different opportunities that we've had with TradeWest. Mike's been involved with several different things in the past. TradeWest was one of the first that I really got involved with on the Forex side of things, and it's been a great opportunity working with him, Ramin, the rest of the team, to offer some different things that I think a lot of different companies don't really care to get into, and opening doors and different chances to do different things in trading that I think a lot of companies don't get into, and it's exciting being a part of doing something different than the way everyone else does things. And to give you a little bit background on me, I've been trading now for a few years, and for the first part of what I would like to call is my trading career, it was really a matter of, it was very casual, and let's just say I wasn't going to make any money continuing at the pace and the rate that I was and the way that I was learning, but it was fun, and so there's different approaches to trading. And so what I'd like to do today is I'd like to maybe dispel some myths about trading, maybe go into different perspectives and ideas, and see where you guys are at. I'd kind of like to open things up a little bit. And usually when we get into a lot of these webinars, we don't do that. For those of you that have been with us for a little while, you know me as the person that that typically likes to kind of gather opinions. I kind of collect them, for lack of a better way to put it. So I like to see where everybody's at. And with a pretty diverse group that we have here today, I think this might be the perfect opportunity for exactly that. So, like I say, today, and what we're doing every Friday, we've done these webinars, and we call them a Forex 101. It's really just kind of the building blocks. We're trying to cover the basics in getting started trading foreign exchange currencies. And there's so many different things out there that I think people don't consider when they get started. They might have some background with trading stocks or futures, options, binaries, what have you, something else, and so they come into Forex with kind of a similar mindset. And so I think one of the first things to do is to kind of cover what works and what doesn't, what makes sense, and what you really should try to avoid as part of that. So I changed things up a little bit from what I was doing originally and decided, we didn't spend enough time, because we ran out of time in the last webinar, we didn't spend enough time really talking about the trading plan, because it's so huge. I didn't feel complete, and I felt like I know there was a lot of people that weren't able to make it to the last one, and despite the fact you can watch a replay, I still wanted to make sure that we had answered some questions and had a chance to talk to people about it. So I have with us here a good group of our pro traders too, which is kind of fun, and I like picking on these guys because good majority of them have been doing it even longer than I have, and there's a lot of wisdom there. There's a lot of knowledge. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into this, and we're going to kind of cover. It's going to be a bit of a review with what we did this last time. So for those of you that missed it, you're going to get a little bit of a review of what we talked about last time, but we'll also be able to kind of go over what it was that we really kind of left off and didn't spend enough time going over. Okay, so on Module 1, we'll call it I shouldn't say Module 1, Part 1 of Module, I think it was Module 7. Last one was Module 8. This would technically be probably Module 9. But the last webinar that we had, we went into homework, and we went over homework following up on the webinar right before that. And what we went into was pretty simple. We talked about choosing pairs and determining what pairs you were really going to kind of focus on in writing your plan. And this is going to sound kind of funny. I'm going to go through, and anybody that's got a microphone, I'm going to kind of bug you guys. I'm going to go in and unmute some of our traders that have been with us for a little while, and I'd like to kind of pick on you guys to see. For those of you that are just getting started, you might kind of see where other people are at, what mistakes they made, maybe when they got started, and get a little bit of feedback as to what it's what it was like for them. I can give you kind of my input and my perspective on it, but I'm one person, and sometimes it's good to hear what other people are doing as well. So I'm going to pick on, and I'll go through it. If you've got a microphone, great. If not, and we just had another one join us, so we're getting a good group of people in here for me to. It's like fresh meat. I got a whole lineup of people I get to pick on. So I'm going to start out with Hal. Hal, if you've got a microphone, plug that in. You've been with us for a good while, and you've been trading for a long time. Hal has an extensive background in statistics, and I've had several conversations with him about different opportunities and different things that we've been working with, and I think that's piqued some of his interest as far as what we've done with Mike and some of the systems that we've developed at TradeWest. But out of curiosity, I'm going to pick on Hal and see when he got started and started writing a trading plan, what you picked. What was your approach? Hal, can you hear us? See if he's got a microphone. And he may not, so we'll see. He's probably trying to put that. And I've got someone with their hand up as well, but we'll give Hal a chance here to see if he can get connected up. I'll go through this real quick, and we'll give him a chance to see if he's got a microphone. He can put that in. I can't hear you yet, Hal. I see your message there, but I don't hear you quite yet. I hear something there. To give you an idea as to what I did when I started trading, I thought that, and this is really funny because I had pretty early on, I had this idea that having kind of a map to to what I'd like to call the treasure chest or goals, and writing a plan so that you could see where you were going. If you're heading the wrong direction, you kind of know, and that's one of the nice things about a trading plan. It's kind of a roadmap. I actually picked the craziest pairs you could even imagine. Half of them were, in my opinion, complete exotics. And when I shared with a buddy of mine that had been trading for a few years, he got such a kick out of the fact that I was my so-called trading plan was full of exotic pairs, and I had several of them. But I said, this one, I thought it was so cool, some of the different things that it did, and the personality, the kind of the characteristics of some of those pairs, and he got a big kick out of it. And let's just say it didn't last very long, and that's not to say that someone can't write a plan with some of these more exotic pairs, but it was entertaining for him. He really got a kick out of it. Really enjoyed the fact that that I thought it would be so cool. And keep in mind, this is years ago. It didn't take me long to realize that there's a reason that people find a little more stable, or a little bit more, not stable necessarily, but pairs that were a little bit easier to read. Okay, I don't know that we've got. Okay, it looks like we don't have a microphone for Hal. I might pick on somebody else here, Hal. If you get your microphone working, let us know. Like I said, this is unplanned here. We'll jump over here to Merlin. See if Merlin's got a microphone. Any luck on a microphone for Merlin? feel like this is Ferris Bueller's.
Sorry, my microphone's not working today.
Wow, that's impressive. It must be a message that.
Damn.
You blew it. You blew it.
Yeah.
Merlin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
So I got to ask you, and I wanted to pick on people because it's one thing to share kind of your experience, but to get other people involved and get more than one idea or approach to things, I think is good. What was your approach to begin with? Not what it is now, because how long have you been trading? Like 10, 15 years or something, Forex? You've been doing it for a long time.
No,
Okay.
not Forex. I've been trading for about a decade and a half.
Yeah.
First, I wanted to clear one thing up. Who were you calling raw meat?
Oh, definitely not you. Definitely
Okay,
not you. That's
fair enough.
and it was fresh meat. There's a difference there, fresh and raw. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, I'll accept that. When I started out, I kind of stumbled across Forex. I'd done some stock trading, and I was kind of into commodities. I thought that was a really nice area, and part of the commodities are cash commodities. And when retail Forex happened, I thought most interesting. So I started studying charts. I probably got, I would say more than 4,000 hours of screen time, which to me is invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was the Euro USD to start with, because that was the most, and still is the most traded pair. Now I kind of tend to focus on the Australian, US, and the yen pairs, because there's a lot of volatility there. Once you learn the personalities of the different pairs, it makes it a lot easier to come up with a plan.
Sure, you bet.
And my trading plan is fairly simple. Don't take a trade unless you know it's going to win.
Which can be tough at times. But you've always been, in my correspondence with you, you've always been very calculated about every trade that you take.
Yeah, there has to be, when you start out trading, you'll learn how the platform works, and you see how the currency pairs go, and it's kind of exciting. There's a bit of a rush to it all, where you go in and you get out, and something works, something didn't work, and you jump back in. But when you start trading live, that doesn't work.
It's a different,
once you know,
world.
It's different not only because of the pressures and the psychological to it, but really, if you're going to be in there taking every trade that you think looks interesting or nice, or you're bored and you want to click the mouse and see if you made some money or lost some money, it's not how professionals trade.
Mm-hmm.
Your number two is very good. When do you trade? Well, you look at the pair you're trading. You look at its personality. You look at what hours are the best, where are the big moves.
I had to click that on you because I know that you do not have a regular sleep schedule.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't understand how you do it, and I've seen Mike. I've seen how he's doing it. I've seen how a lot of my other friends that are pros that have been trading for a long time, and I got to tell you, you somehow pull it off. But I have no clue how. I can't do it. I've tried it. I can't do it well. Let's put it that way. I can't sustain your type of sleep schedule. Give me an example of what a regular day is for you.
You have children, Nate.
This is true. This is true. But that's not the only reason.
Children and sleep, that's not usually used without at least one negative in a sentence.
That's true.
When I was trading, I was trading about, when I first started, 12, 15 hours a day, and I would nap in between when the market was getting slim and there wasn't much going on. I would grab a nap. And then sometimes my wife, who had taken an interest in Forex and loved to watch the charts, she'd come and wake me up and say, hey, this is happening.
Oh, wait a second. So you're cheating. You're cheating.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm cheating with my wife. That's different.
Oh, wow.
But the point I was making was, once you decide when currency moves are most likely to happen, and you have your own favorite pet indicators and whatever you want, the real key is the patience to wait before you pull the trigger. Not being afraid to pull the trigger, but just getting in at the right moment and sticking with your trade.
Yeah.
It's easy when it goes down and you're up 10 pips, but you're looking at the chart and going, this should go at least 50 or 70, even maybe 150 pips, but you get out of your trade.
I still struggle with that.
You're not letting your winners run.
I still struggle with that. And I mean, I hate, just because I've had plenty of trades where I knew it was moving, I get in it, and I'll ride the wave, so to speak. Of course, I make the wave analogies, so I miss the beach. Now I'm landlocked. But I'll ride that wave for what I feel to be nothing but white water. It's done. You know, it's like, in my opinion, it's like, I know it's gonna be over with. It's gonna go against me. I'm gonna see some kind of a whipsaw or something happen in there, some kind of reversal, and I'll get out, and I've seen enough trades where they just continue to drop or go up if I'm long, and it drives me crazy. And I think that's one of the psychological things that's one of the few things that I just have no real solid grasp on, is getting out, feeling confident that I should get out and can get out, because you can put yourself in a bad spot quick.
I can give you a little secret if you like.
Yeah, please.
Okay, nobody else listen. I'm just talking to Nate. Okay. Once you begin to understand the patterns, the personality of your charts of a given pair, if you look closely, you will see that moves come normally in 3 waves.
Sure.
And I'm not into Elliott wave, or when I say wave, because of the structure of the market and the psychology of humans. If you're in a buy trade, it'll go up and then retrace a little bit, and that's where you normally go, oh my, I just got to go back and I'm going to lose all my money on all these nice profits. Then it goes up a second leg, and then it will go up a third leg, and sometimes shoot up a bit to a fourth, and then immediately reverse direction. But if you look for the 3 levels, and sometimes it can, in one move, jump 2 levels. But once, that's what you want to stay in for. That's where you can take 1 trade a day, make 150 pips on 1 lot, and that's a nice living. And you just done 1 trade, and you haven't sat in front of your computer for 20 hours wondering where the next big move is coming from. So, patience.
So I wanted to ask, while I've got you here, on a style, how long did it take for you to kind of determine you were going to trade a certain way? I mean, how much do you see yourself, or how often do you see yourself just kind of sticking to one trading style? Because that's one thing I haven't been able to pinpoint on you. in our conversations, is are you doing the same thing that, I mean, you found success and you're sticking to it, or, I mean, do you still find yourself kind of jumping outside of that trading style? How many different styles did you trade maybe before you got there?
If you look, there's a book, what is it called? The next good trade or the next great trade.
Okay.
It's all about a trading room and the guy who's running the agency and the trading room. And he talks about the personalities of all the different traders.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back then, all the traders were making money. Everybody was making money hand over fist because it was a bull market.
Sure.
So if you were a trader when it was a bull market, you looked like a genius every day, and you just couldn't do anything wrong. You just buy and buy and buy. Then reality hit the market, and about, I'd say 40% of those traders just blew off. They're no longer trading. Mm-hmm. They learned how to buy. They never learned the market. And whether it's stocks or commodities or Forex, we're lucky because you make money both directions easily with the click of a mouse.
Yeah.
But you need to have a lot of arrows in your quiver.
Sure.
Because the market's going to change. It's going to change on you without warning. And the trick is to be able to recognize when a change has occurred. Hey, this isn't working like it was yesterday. One of Trade Hero Pro last week or the week before, it was running fine on the pound Swissy, mm-hmm. and running fine on the Euro GBP. And then all of a sudden, the pound Swissy went off, and it just wasn't behaving normally. Well, that was some intervention, and you have to be sensitive to that so you can cut your losses, turn that off. And if you're running EAs, or like I develop EAs, you want to have 4 or 5 or 6 winning EAs that work in different market conditions, and you just throw a different EA on it and you're good to go. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And I think what I've found with most of the people that I talk to, Merlin, you know, you're right in there. A lot of there's people get comfortable and you kind of get used to certain aspects, but I think you're right. The traders that know it's coming, the traders that have suffered some kind of drawdown or a significant earthquake in their account, so to speak, have kind of the expectation that it could happen anytime, and so they plan accordingly. You know, and there's some people, depending upon when they get into trading, you don't see very many people, in my opinion, with the way the markets have been over the last couple of years. You don't see many people that go in and they just see success. I've heard tons of stories years ago where there was a lot of that going on, and probably part of it relative to what you were just referring to. But
yeah.
You know, it's you don't see it very often, and you're always going to hear about people bragging it up as if it's just taken place. But you know, to see it is another thing. So the next thing that I had been asking the last couple of times in a row was how much time, you know, are people willing to actually spend writing their trading plans on a regular basis, or adjusting it and adapting it, changing it, and to kind of just go on that really quickly, because I want to ask you some questions on the next part here, and this is where it's going to kind of where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. But for me, I've noticed that if I'm making goals, because the hardest part for me is kind of getting a good sense of what's working and what's not, and what the right amount of time is that you allow or allocate to run something until it actually starts proving to be successful or proving to be profitable. And that can be a really difficult one. When it comes to EAs, being as you've programmed your own EAs and you make your own EAs and things like that on the automated side, what do you do for an EA as far as integrating automated systems into your trading? Because I know you do a lot of manual trading, but you're very particular about your manual trades that you're picking as far as confirmation goes. What about the automated side? How long do you run an EA before a duck is a duck?
Before a duck is a duck. I don't. A duck is always a duck, Nate. What do you?
Before you call it what it is, if it's a failure and you kind of say, okay, I mean, for example, I've traded some systems in the past that, you know, you get kind of that remorse where you'll trade it, you'll get it going, and I'm always testing different EAs and systems out there. I have kind of a passion for seeing what other people, what their logic was, and kind of not reverse engineering things, but really kind of seeing what people's logic is behind their system and their strategy, and it's kind of fun to do that. But I've seen where, you know, you start something, you get it going, and in my opinion, if you don't see success, substantial success, and what I guess substantial to me is if you can't see a swing in the right direction without a huge swing against you, you've got to be able to kind of stay somewhat even emotionally, because let's face it, one of the benefits of trading automated systems is that you don't have to mess with the emotions, but when you're in that probationary state, you're still having to make the determination of whether or not it's either potentially a good system to trade or just outright it's not worth your time. And so that's one of those things. With you making your own EAs, I wonder how long do you go with the system before you say it either has to get a complete facelift or it's just maybe it's just not going to cut it, and you look at the base strategy and say it's not for me.
Well, I try if I'm buying somebody else's EA, I try to run it at least, well, not too long so that I can't get a refund if it simply doesn't work.
Okay, well, there's a good question. Let's say you've got 30 days. I mean, in my opinion, 60 days is great because it gives you a little bit more time. But for someone that maybe hasn't spent a whole lot of time, what about the 30-day mark? If you've got the 30-day refund.
If I'm running, what I'll do for demo purposes is I'll run an EA on maybe 16 different pairs. And I may have a second platform running it on the same pairs, but on a different time frame, and sometimes even a third. Mm-hmm. Now I take a look at the results at the end of the week. And as far as I'm concerned, our best friend is myfxbook.com. If you learn to use the analysis tools in there, it can tell you, hey, this EA is getting 50% wins. However, if you don't have the EA turned on between 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock, it has 100% wins. Yeah. And usually it's somewhere in between there, but when you trade is pretty much, to me, more critical than what you're trading.
Yeah, what? Yeah.
So my FX book, learn how to analyze the results. Mm-hmm. And after a week, I check after the first week, after the second week, and I may have discovered in that time that it doesn't work during certain hours. It produces losses. predictably. So if the EA is such that it has trading hours built into it, then I'll only run it during certain hours for the last 2 weeks on the pairs in which it has proved profitable.
Okay, fair enough.
And if it works, then I've got another hour for the quiver.
Hal here, listen to this. Hal says, I like how he puts it, nothing always works. Everything sometimes works. It is possible to predict the timing. And it's, like you say, we go up to the first point that we're trying to make here is a few weeks back we started talking about schedule and setting your schedule. And the reason I made such a big deal of this on the first one was I flat out, that was probably one of my biggest struggles with being able to trade what I wanted to. Like I could look at certain aspects of trading, and I mean, if I had it my way, I'd be trading the London Open every morning. But I couldn't I couldn't pull myself to do it with my lifestyle, my family, and everything else. I couldn't do it that often. I could do it every once in a while. It'd throw me off, and then I'd go back into it. So it's almost like you have to. It's like taking a job. I knew someone that had I can't remember if it was a swing shift or a graveyard shift, but they took this job making a ton of money. It was when I was growing up. It was a friend's mother that took this job, and it was for a lot of money. And she said, "Well, hell, I'll change my lifestyle for that." She did it, and it didn't matter what she did to try. She could not change her lifestyle. So it either works or it doesn't, and that's one of the hard things about it. But you're right.
Then you get into a question of discipline.
Exactly. Yeah.
And your self-discipline is critical, but also if you find a good time to trade, you can make a nice living off of Forex trading 2 days a week for 2 or 3 hours each day.
I got to ask that real quick. Let's get a show of hands. How many of you that are with us today? How many of you trade on a daily basis when the markets are open, and how many of you would prefer to trade once or twice a week? And it might be kind of a stupid question. While I'm asking that, if you could, everybody go to the chat box and let us know how many of you prefer to trade on a daily basis, or how many of you would rather trade. What would your preference be? Still trade daily, or how many of you would just do it once or twice a week if you could? Okay, John is saying 5 days a week. Yes. Hal says prefer one trade per year. How about you, Merlin? What's your take on that?
Well, I have, as you know, 6 monitors. 4 of them are devoted to charts, and they're up all the time. But if I'm not here, I'm not trading. And if I want to go down to take a leisurely stroll down Ipanema Beach and I don't have any trades on, that's fine. Or I'll set my stop loss, take profit, and walk away. But I'm patient.
Yeah.
And I know that tomorrow's another day, and the market's still going to be there. So there are always trading opportunities. Forex can control you, or you can use some self-discipline and kind of use Forex as a tool to improve your financial state.
Listen to this. This is kind of interesting. We've got several people that said twice a week, prefer twice a week. Dr. Block says prefer daily. Alvin is another one of our pro traders. He says 4-hour charts and daily charts. So I mean, we're kind of all over the board. I was kind of expecting, and maybe it's because of how I asked the question. How many of you? I mean, how many of you trade because you enjoy being in there and kind of the exhilarating rush and what it is to be in the charts? And how many of you would rather just make the money from your trades. Kind of like Hal says, prefer one trade a year. What if you could make one trade a year? So this is the new question. If you could make one trade a year and be done with it, would you? Yes, if you could make that one trade a year and be done with trading, and still, I mean, hey, you're still a trader, right? One trade a year, but be done with it. I'm not saying this is the Powerball, but you make enough money to where you don't have to trade on a daily basis. It does well for you. How many of you would make that one trade?
Nobody.
Okay, and then how many people, of course, the flip side of that is how many people would prefer to still. So he says, I don't trade for fun. I had someone say that, I can't remember what the comment was, but it was something relative to Las Vegas and gaming. And it was an analogy about Forex trading and gaming, and if I want to play, I play craps or whatever it is, whatever different games in Vegas, and if I want to work, and the difference was that they had very similar outcomes. Only one was you disowned the money the second you came up to the table or something like that. If I can find that, I'll share it next time. But so we have yes, and be on holiday forever. John wants to know where he can sign up for that plan.
Yeah, I want that trade.
Yeah, I want that trade, please. Scalp in and out. So David says scalp in and out. We've got Wes saying yes. We've got plenty of yeses, and I think a lot of people have that approach, that opinion. So that's one of those things to consider. As we get into this, you kind of find what's going to work. You might have a certain picture, a certain idea as to where you want to be, but I find that a lot of people make the mistake of, like you made a comment just a second ago, Merlin, about just letting it run your life. I mean, how many activities, maybe even hobbies or things do we get into where we've got this perfect little happy, fuzzy thought that we have of what it's going to be like, and then when we get into it, we have a little reality check, and then we have some modification to the original plan or idea of what it was going to be, and the next thing you know, it's a beast. We hate it. It's it's running our lives. So it's one of those where you have to have that discipline to be able to determine how you're going to make money with your trading plan and how much it's going to change your life and everything else. You don't want it to be something that makes you miserable, in my opinion. And that's one of the things that I've kind of refused to do on certain levels. I know I could make more money trading. I know I could if I changed a few things, but I've tried it that way, and I'm not really willing to make that level of sacrifice on that end of it, to where that's all I do, because I miss out on time with my kids, and they're small still, so that's just me. But it's interesting, some of the responses here.
Trading is a business.
Did you watch our last webinar? I took that slide out today, but yes, I totally agree.
It's not a hobby. It's not something you can, even if you have a lot of training experience, if you're moving into Forex, it's not something you're going to pick up overnight. It's not something that you're going to find NEA, throw it on the charts, and then move to Bali, or Rio in my case. It takes time. Consider your learning curve and the time you spend, the thousands of hours looking at charts, finding and impressing the patterns that you see, and being able to connect those patterns with the right actions. Consider it more like a 4 years of college with a couple years of master's, and maybe someday you might want to do a PhD.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll go for that.
But you have to do it as a business, not as a hobby. If you want it, You know, if you were in the hospital and they introduced to your surgeon to you who was going to be doing your operation, and well, yeah, this is my hobby. I'm actually a golf pro, but I come in here a couple days a week and try my hand at surgery. Doesn't work.
Sign me up.
Doesn't work. So it takes patience, perseverance, all the same things you do with any career. And you have to have a passion for it.
Yeah, everybody that I've noticed recently that's trading, it sounds funny because when they talk about their trading, it almost sounds like they're talking about a relationship with a person that almost an intimate relationship with someone, you know what I mean, where they're talking about almost like a spouse. It is that, because you set up a certain amount of time to spend with that on that relationship, and you have certain things that you do and you don't do within that relationship, and it sounds ridiculous, but it is. It's a business, and the people that I've found that are doing the best with trading treat it like a business, and I think that helps take a little bit more of the emotion out of it. Because Forex, that's one of the hardest things to do, is to completely remove yourself. I haven't known someone yet that can completely remove themselves, and I think when people say that they can, that like no emotion, nothing ever. I don't know.
Yeah, they're lying.
They're lying.
But
plain and simple.
Like the other gentleman you were talking about here, who likes to trade 4-hour charts.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice. The 4-hour charts are very stable. The patterns are there. If you get set up for a good move, you get in early, and you ride it all the way to the top. That can be one trade, may take 3 or 4 candles, and you've got yourself your 150 pips. And if you spot the reversal, you can get your 150 pips in addition to that on the way back.
Yeah, on the other side. Hal says, people pay, his microphone's not working, but we tried to pick on him earlier. People pay $10,000 for Super Bowl tickets. I would not go to a game unless you pay me at least $50,000. I'm surprised, Hal, being out in Florida. Florida's football is pretty big out there. One person's pleasure is another's torture. Trading is no different. People do it for different reasons. Of course, everyone wants to make money at it, but it is either fun or a necessary evil. Yeah, exactly. Some people, and I think that's one of the difficult things that I see. That's one of the difficult things that I see is some people get into it saying, I've got to make a certain amount of money, and they seem to be the first ones that get discouraged because maybe they don't have anything else lined up, or let's face it, if you're, depending upon where you are and what your retirement's like, it might not be going the direction you want it to, and that's difficult. There's definitely, you want to shorten that learning curve and the time it takes to get there. Alvin says, just don't be greedy, be disciplined. And Hal says, I have left many Packer games at halftime. Screaming crowd and freezing cold is torture. But the waiting list for season tickets is 100 years long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Risk threshold, Merlin. I don't know. I can't handle more than a few percent a day. Unless I'll find myself, if I miss out on trading sometimes, and I'm sticking to plan for the most part. If I miss a couple days, then I open that up a little bit, and sometimes those are my worst trading days because I expect a little bit more. What do you think about the risk threshold?
I know your life, Nate, and there's no way that you found the time to put in the screen time on the necessary currency pairs and figured out which hours are the best ones to trade and really nailed down your own trading plan to where you achieve profitability only a few hours a week.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. You've got to you have to make work what works. And it's funny because I've actually changed some of my scheduling so that I can open things up a little bit more. But it's difficult because you have to know, like on the risk side, on the time side, you've got to kind of know your limits. And I think that's where people get disappointed the most, is when you don't, whenever you're making a life change or how you set yourself up for things. So many people set themselves up for disappointment because they're expecting to make a certain amount of money, and if you're realistic with yourself and you say, okay, to make that much money realistically, it's going to take this much work, this much chart time, this much of everything, and they don't match up, so they don't fit.
One of the things you could do to improve your, since you're busy doing other things during the day, is get yourself one more monitor and have nothing but 3 or 4 charts on that. You don't necessarily have to be trading it, but just looking over, seeing what happens, and getting it into your consciousness.
Yeah.
As far as risk, one of the things I picked up from somebody along the line is only trade 10% of your available capital. So if you manage to save up $10,000 or euros or whatever, open an account with 1,000, not 5,000 or 10,000. Open it up for 1,000. If you blow that account, you've got 9 more chances.
Yeah.
So the stress of trading is greatly lessened. At what point do I call it a day? Well, if I'm up 4, 5, 8, 12%, then I call it a day.
That's a good day.
That's an expected day.
I was talking with one of our traders. His name's David, and he has spent so much time. He spent so much time finding the right mix of indicators and things for his strategy. But he's at that point, and it's kind of this. He's kind of in this little euphoria, for for lack of a better way to put it. He's in this little spot that he is so happy to have made it there, and it's taken him years and thousands of hours and just a lot of time to get to that point where he can say, this trade that I'm about to take, and he shared some stuff with me, a good amount of it with me, and he said, every time, he says, without fail, I know that I'm high 90 percentile of making a solid trade, and it's not that often, and it's one of those. It's kind of like, that's kind of why I was asking the questions that I was earlier. It can be kind of tough. The next one, of course, is strategies. On the 4th step of writing your plan, because we talk about a trading plan being different than we defined them in the last one as being different. A trading plan is different than a trading strategy. So you have to kind of know what trading strategies. In my opinion, if you've got a strategy that you've kind of adopted simply due to good marketing, you might be in for a real treat in a not so good way. You know what I mean? It's one of those. There's a lot of good marketing out there. You kind of have to do some homework on the source, what their experience is, what they're capable of doing, or what they've produced in the past, and where they've kind of come from. But I've seen people that will say, I've got this strategy. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And nobody has to design or create their own strategy to be successful. But it's hard because I see a lot of people that will adopt a strategy that comes from some mentor, guru, whatever you want to call it, pro trader, funds manager, what have you, and it'll be someone else's strategy, and they're wondering why their approach to that strategy isn't working the same way that that professional that designed it or that developer's approach works for that person. And I would say there's a good amount of time those strategies do work. I've seen and corresponded with a lot of these people where I've seen them do very well with these strategies, and there's a tendency to make them look more simple. Of course, that's marketing, to make them look more simple to adopt and make part of your plan. But it's difficult to see that people don't understand that you almost kind of have to put yourself in that shoe. So if the personality of the trader that developed that strategy and the way that they trade it isn't something you like, you may or may not be happy with the results when you put your personality together with it. What's your take on that, Merlin?
I agree. If some people have found a way to trade well, you're not necessarily, if you haven't spent the same couple thousand hours, if you don't have the same view of the charts, if you don't see the same patterns happening over and over and over again, then you can have a system minus the intuition. You have to develop your own intuition, which will then give you the strategies that you're comfortable with because you understand them.
I agree. Hal says, listen to this, he says, all teachers, coaches, advisors, etc. demand that a written trading plan is requirement number one. And he says, I fail to see the point of having any plan without knowing in advance that it works. Let's change the word plan to experiment.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it, right? That's perfect. You know, I mentioned that I spent some time with one of our traders named David that had, I mean, he had a lot of technical analysis, a lot of tools, creating this incredible strategy that he's got, and I know I'm going to dig into and pick on him a little bit more to see how he's doing it, because it was very intriguing how he came about it. But it's one of those where I think it's interesting, because some people will take one strategy and to kind of continue on the lines of what we were talking about this last one on number 4 there, they'll take something and then they'll try and integrate them all. Have you ever seen, Merlin, have you ever seen the traders that have 20 different indicators on one on one chart? Have you seen that before?
Yes, I have. And
I love it. I think it's great.
I've had 10 or 15 at one time, and then I went back to, it's called trading naked. No indicator on the chart, just trading price action.
Yeah, we know why you live in Rio.
Oh, yeah. I'm very popular here.
I went to New York one time and was out there at a show, and and of course we did our walk down Times Square and everything. And I never thought I'd be taking a picture of my wife grabbing another guy's butt with a guitar and not be able to see anything else. You ever heard of the Naked Cowboy?
No.
Well, if you haven't, it's kind of funny. He walks around in a Speedo or something, but the guy's I don't think he's that musically talented, but man, he really caught a lot of attention running around doing his little thing. It was pretty funny. But you know, technical analysis, I see a lot of people that kind of struggle with what works with what, and it's one more of those. It's if you've got the opportunity to try something, I think it's great. There's a lot of people that I see that will jump into a lot of these trial offers of different products. I think it's a great way to see what's out there, to see what people are doing, to see, you know, just get a feel for how different strategies kind of come together. I've seen a lot of people find success just by learning from other things that maybe they invested in, maybe they didn't, but they picked up a little bit more information as they went through that process. Hal is saying, my plan is to keep stumbling along and trying things that other people tell me are viable, and to keep doing this until I run out of money. Then Dash, he says, almost there.
I think I can help you out, Hal.
I know that Hal's made some big money in the past, and I know he's lost some big money, and I think some of the things he's lost big money on, I know, have been people that it's kind of like we talked in the business partner side of things. I know he's had some rough business partners in the past, and that in and of itself is a tough one. It's kind of like choosing. This is going to be a stupid tie back to what we're talking about here, but choosing your indicators and your strategy is kind of like choosing a good business partner. If you don't have a very good judge of character, then maybe don't pull the trigger so quickly.
Same can be said for love and marriage.
Yeah, this is true. Number 6 was write down what you'll be using for trade management or how you will manage your lot size, take profit, stop loss, etc. We talk a little bit about, and we've done this in some of the first modules that we did, and that is on the trade management side of things. It's kind of funny because there's automated approaches to it, of course. On the TradeWest side of things, we recommend that if you can integrate a tool that has a good track record that you can do well with, then use it and take advantage of it. I think when I look at the progression of Pip Stat and Mike Swanson and his money management background, that's where he shines. He does well with money management. If I'm in the market for a strategy or maybe some kind of analysis or technical information or knowledge, I'm going to find out who really has a stronghold in that one aspect, and if that's what I'm failing at or if that's what I'm struggling with, I'm going to do everything I can to get that information from that person. I know Mike Swanson very well, of course, and that's one thing that I've seen people that struggle, the people that come and meet Mike and follow us in their trading. We're so based in the money management side of things. If you had a hard time with money management, those are the people that are going to do the best with us, because that was the missing link, kind of like our funny little image here. That's the missing piece to the puzzle for them. For someone that's got money management down and they have their own set calculations for that, I mean, they're not going to see the same improvement. They're not going to see the same strengths and things. Bill is saying, can we have a recording of this? Yes, Bill, we are in fact recording this, so you'll be able to jump back into it and go over it again. Yep. See, you should have stuck with the original recording of not being able to hear us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're on board. You're on board now, Merlin.
Yeah, blew that one.
Yeah.
Let me jump in and say that one of the best things I saw Mike do right at the very start, which kind of pulled me into you guys, was the DDSMM.
Sure, yeah, Forex Decoder.
And throwing that up into Excel on the side, it really starts bringing home a lot of the basic things you need to know. The idea of I always trade 2%, or I always trade 1/10 of a lot. Mm-hmm. That's, over the long haul, that's not a winning strategy. And if you can take something as complex as money management, there's a guy, he's probably the industry guru, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, and he wrote a book that had 152 different strategies for money management, all the way from a per trade up through a whole portfolio, and literally he wrote the book on it. The lot size is very likely the most important factor.
Vital, yeah.
And the fact that Mike was able to tackle that in a simple and relatively automated manner, hats off to him on that one.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, when I just look at what even Pip Stat does, I mean, because Pip Stat really, you've got to look at the shoulders that Pip Stat's standing on, like you say, DDSMM. But you look at what Pip Stat can do, it's come a long ways as far as being able to handle some of the things that for people that are trading, that really, let's face it, people aren't generally making the calculations that are really required to make sense statistically of things. It just doesn't happen. We've got someone asking, what is Pip Stat? Okay, let's go through this. What I'm going to do is, David, I'm going to answer your Pip Stat question here, and we'll do that kind of as before we close here. Number 7 is to determine the currency pairs you're planning to trade. We've talked about this a little bit. Avoid too many like-minded pairs, maybe a couple of those max, and then determine how long you're going to trade. The plan, of course, before you adjust it or before you realize that it's not sound, or it's something that you're going to stick to, like we had talked about. What I'm going to do here real quick is Pip Stat, to give kind of an idea, is, let's see if I can't jump in here. I'm going to switch this up a little bit here. So Pip Stat is, there's several different products that Mike Swanson has developed with the TradeWest development team, and Pip Stat is actually it's one of them. It's probably, I don't know, we have a lot of different software, I guess, but there's one kind of stands out, and I'll kind of give you kind of an idea here of what Pip Stat is. For those of you that haven't seen it, this is in response to David's question. Pip Stat is essentially a trade management tool. It's a floating application. It's something that's really kind of one of its kind out there in what it does. It works and kind of coincides with the MetaTrader platform. And what's nice about Pip Stat is you have several different ways to control your trade management. For example, lot size is front and center here. You've got everything from the you have everything from the right tools and the right controls that you need to be able to adjust things for your system or your strategy and what you're doing. On the control side, you've got the ability to change things manually or to use a couple different trade management approaches. For example, the most recent indicator that we have with TradeWest, of course, is Momentix. And Momentix is a tool that jumps in when the markets are starting to move. The idea is Mike Swanson used to work for a brokerage and went to work for them, and from there he got a job working with a Swiss bank, and he's put several different things together, and that brought out Momentix, and so he's got the ability. He's added the option to be able to use the Momentix stop loss and take profit, or use Pip Stat, and they're going to give you two different approaches to trading. And it's kind of interesting. You can do everything from create a profile and load that profile, from copy your history so that it doesn't take you a real long time. If you've been trading an account for a year and you take and put Pip Stat on it for the first time, it's going to go through and it's going to tell you kind of what you're doing wrong with your trade management. It's going to give you that opportunity to make certain adjustments. You've got, of course, a trailing stop. And so there's all these different tools that you can use with it. And, of course, you can kind of synchronize it with either Momentix, like I say, or you can use just the regular Pip Stat. But it has the ability to be used. For example, you've got the option right here. If we're looking at the euro yen, we're going to put this guy on the euro yen, and it's showing just a generic take profit and stop loss because I haven't gotten it to pick up. I don't have much history on this account per se. But and then right here, if we go in and we say, okay, the U.S. yen. So you can open up several different Pip Stats. You can see how it's kind of nice that they go. The Pip Stat actually will go pretty transparent. You can even control that on your chart, so you can still see what's going on in the background there. Click on it once and then buy or sell. So it's a very handy tool, but it does the trade management that I just don't see. I don't see your average trader really grasping this stuff within the first 2 or 3 years of their trading. In my opinion, it shortens the learning curve. It's one of those things that just makes it easier for people to focus on the types of things that they really should be focusing on, like getting that chart time with a specific currency pair, getting to know its personality, and focusing on kind of the execution side of things. And that's what's nice about Pip Stat. So David, hopefully that answers your question there. But yeah, and like I say, we don't do these webinars to we're obviously going to plug our own product a little bit, but we don't do them just to sell product, and we actually probably don't do a good enough job of that in offering people the product. But yeah, so that's how the product works. That's how Pip Stat works, and you can see Momentix in the background there. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we are going to do some webinars probably next week for these guys, so people have a little bit better introduction. It's always good to go to the person that invented it, that created it, and that'll be a good opportunity. If people would like to be a part of that, then please let us know, and we'll make sure that you get an invitation to that. So that's kind of the nice thing about Pip Stat is it'll show all the different pairs that your broker is offering, and it makes it really nice. It's one of those tools that you got to be careful of, though. You might get used to it and then become dependent on it. So if you're not looking for something that creates a dependency, it might not be the right tool for you. But I always say if it improves your trading and that opportunity, then it can always be a plus. Hopefully that answers David's question. Does Mike Swanson ever do live seminars? Oh yes, definitely. So he actually we do a lot of webinars. We put on webinars on Mondays for support for members that are kind of getting up and running. We do interactive one-on-one sessions for people that are trying to get their system set up for the first time, because I know that can be kind of tedious. We do webinars. We do what we call a beta webinar. So if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but our beta team, we've been able to kind of up the limit a little bit as to how many people we allow in the beta team. But some of these products, for example, we have different people, and I know Merlin has been one of those traders that has given us very valuable information. There's features in some of our systems that we kind of joke around with. Oh, that's the Merlin, or that's the Kenny, or that's the Bob, because there's actual features that have come. Or Judy, I know Judy, one of our traders, she's come up with several different functions and things that. It's brilliant. I mean, we're open to suggestions as to how to make these systems better, and so it makes it very nice from that standpoint to be able to integrate from our beta team these ideas and things that we get into. So it's a lot of fun. And Merlin has a fun time making fun of me sometimes in those webinars, don't you, Merlin?
I'm waiting to see you point out the Nate.
Oh, come on now.
Where's the Nate?
It should be called the Nate, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's fun. We have probably on any given webinar, and the beta testers don't have to be there every week, but we've got anywhere from 40 to 50 people in there, and that's kind of, I don't know, I don't see us going to 100 people anytime soon, because we do want to make sure that we hold a close ear to what's happening, what they're suggesting. So, but yes, there will be live seminars, live webinars next week, and we'd love to have you, David. So, okay, kind of moving back to our slides here, because we're just about done. Let's see here. That's great. See, if you've got them on top, then you can you can keep them no matter where you're at. This guy is going to write his trading plan using Pip Stat. What do you think? Okay. Where to start your trading plan? Well, that's going to be up to you. If you've gotten to the point where um, if you've gotten to the point where things kind of make sense and you're able to line up the things that you feel like are going to be the best and most successful in what you're doing in your approach, then sometimes the hardest part is just starting. This is going to sound kind of funny when I say this, but I actually spent some time in Brazil, and one of the interesting things is when you're trying to help someone change any given thing that they might be doing. Maybe it's something they want to change, and they're coming to you saying, "Hey, give me a hand making this adaptation to my lifestyle, to what I'm doing, my routine." You have to kind of involve people. In my opinion, this is me. This is change 101 according to Nate. And if you involve people around you, if you involve your closest friends or your family, and you let them know what's going on, it makes it a little bit more difficult sometimes, in the sense that failure can be a little more painful because other people know about it and they're a part of that, and they see that they're going to be asking you, and that's really part of it is, hey, how's that plan of yours you were so excited about going? Maybe they're cynical, but the point is, if you've got other people involved in it, it's more real, it's tangible, and it's something that's actually taking place. And so people generally they own that goal as opposed to really not making a real effort for it, because it was a hidden secret goal. And I almost go as far as saying a secret goal is as bad as a goal that's never written down, or a goal that's never really even you don't even attempt to reach, because you've got to have the people around you, your friends and loved ones and things like that, that know it even exists, in my opinion. Okay, guys, so we're going to end today. Merlin, thank you again for your input, and if those of you that know me and have been around long enough, you'll know that if you've got the opportunity, if you've got a microphone, I will pick on you. We do it mostly, I'd say, probably in the beta webinars, but I like to end with a couple different quotes here. And Bill Cosby, come on, who doesn't love Bill Cosby? In order to succeed, okay, sorry, we lost audio there for a second. In order to succeed, your desire for success should be greater than your fear for failure. And it's funny, because some people I was talking to kind of a self-help guru friend of mine that I know, and he was making a comment about someone, and said, well, I think what it is there is, and it sounds like it's talking about me, but it actually was somebody else. It sounds like he's afraid to succeed. He's talking about somebody, and I thought, you know what? I had a hard time wrapping my brain around that. But some people are really, they're scared of failure, but they're also scared of succeeding, and you can't be. You can't let that slow you down. You can't let it become something that that impedes your progress, and it happens all the time. Who doesn't love Michael Jordan as well? I mean, when you're talking about a sports icon, that guy was amazing. Seeing what he did and how he just kind of dominated the NBA. I love this quote. He says, "I've failed over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed." I mean, that guy, what's the story on Michael Jordan? He didn't make his high school basketball team or something. I mean, can you imagine the guy that ends up being, I mean, that's just it's a perfect point to make about the people that become successful Forex traders. They're the people that have failed the most, typically. I mean, they're people that have really had a hard time and struggled through what they've done, but they've stuck to it, and they've gotten to that point. So keep in mind, when you get to that point where you're ready to throw in the towel on your trading career and what you're doing, if you want to do it bad enough, you're really going to shoot for it. There's something that was shared with me just the other day about someone and their trading, and it wasn't trading, rather it was relative to sports, and a guy, not sports, but a guy that was wanting to make money. He says, This guy goes to this guru. He wants to make a bunch of money, and he says, yeah, I want to make a bunch of money. He says, okay, meet me at the beach tomorrow. So the guy goes to the beach. He shows up in a suit, and this other guy's in shorts, and he says, like, okay. He says, all right. He says, you want to make money, right? He's like, yeah, I want to make money. Yeah. Guy walks out into the water, okay, and the guy's like, what are you doing? He's like, this guy's crazy. He's making money, but this old man's crazy, right? He walks out a little bit further, and he says, no, walk out a little bit further. He's like, I didn't want to be a lifeguard, man. I want to make money. The guy walks out further. The guy holds him underwater. Holds him underwater to the degree where he's freaking out, thinking he's going to drown. Finally lets him up at the very last second before the guy passes out. The moral of the story is, he says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, you'll be successful. And as cheesy as that sounds, there's some truth to that. One contrasting comment that I wanted to leave, and this is Bruce Lee. I look up to this guy a lot too. He was a pretty incredible guy as well. He says, always be yourself, express yourself, have faith in yourself. Now this is contrast to some of the things that I've talked about. Do not go out and look for a successful personality and duplicate it. Now that doesn't mean or go to say that you don't find someone successful and trade like they trade. But the point is, the personality is different. You've got to still keep your personality in how you do what you do. So keep that in mind. You guys, thank you very much for your time today. Anyone that's interested in going the next step, Merlin's pointing out again. He's as we close down, he's saying, don't forget, failing to plan is planning to fail. We've shown that in one of our previous webinars, and it's very true. Good luck, everyone, in your trading this week. Please feel free to join us for the next Forex 101 webinar. And keep in mind, we have several webinars that are quite more advanced. We have kind of everything in between on different levels of trading. But we appreciate you being with us, and we hope you have an excellent week. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.